conducting the interviews itself. So again, we are recommending that line managers should be the ones who are overall responsible for this, and to put together the interview panel as well, to be have either the DSL, the HR manager, or at least one person who has been trained in safeguarding to a level of focal point or higher, if there's nobody else in the group that has that, to be able to add that safeguarding dimension, and also the country leader, but mostly for senior positions. So that's the recommendation. And also to just look into the interview panel and try to ensure that there's good diversity there if possible, to add a little bit of fairness in perspectives for everyone. So let me bring us to the glass cubes. If you click on the link that's on the document, it will take you to this document here, and it's 3 pages. The first page is just giving some tips on preparing the interview panel. So again, it's repeating the same thing. Have a person who's trained in safeguarding, and why. Agree the shortlisting and interview questions, and ensure it includes, safeguarding questions as well, relevant to the requirements of the role, and ensure that the safeguarding questions are not so specific that it is difficult for some people to answer. That means it really only, because you want to perhaps address a particular candidate's, something you saw in their CV, but you ask this question of everyone else, which throws everyone off because they're not actually very proficient in it or haven't had the same background. So the question should also be fair to everyone, which again is the other reason why we encourage sending the policy or the code of conduct out beforehand so that they've read it. I think the rest of it we'll be able to read ourselves, but here come the questions, and now I will just pause sharing my screen because we'll move into breakout rooms immediately. Why don't I move us into breakout rooms, and if you have any issues, do let us know. But it's a short chat time, so please do allow each other to talk as well. And we'll come back after 8 minutes to have a quick feedback. Okay, so we'll see you in a short while.
Okay, hi everybody. Let me just see, we've got a few people. Okay, so we've got, it's so hard to manage the Zoom screen sometimes. We've got Talia and Julia and Shan and Belle, Melvin and Dorothy. Okay, anybody else hiding? No. Okay, good to see you all from all corners of the world. I think Talia, you're the furthest away. Are you from the UK? It must be what, 7 o'clock for you or something? 6 o'clock?
Here is 6 o'clock.
Okay. Is it dark or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, I think we've got about 7 or 8 minutes together. It's not long, but we thought it's helpful just to look at these safeguarding questions, examples that you could use in an interview together. And maybe just to hear from all of you, because, people like Melvin, Belle, Talia, you're probably doing more recruitment than some of the rest of us. Maybe just to ask you, like, what kind of questions are you asking in interviews to do with safeguarding, or have you been using any of the ones on the screen? Yeah, kind of what are you doing at the minute and what's working for you?
For my experience for last interview with our medical officer and also our media officer, we use like a small case study to asking to the interviewer when we have an interview, like if the question will coming like if you are going to the our client house, if you meet the children and he or she alone at home, So some of the applicants, they are aware for safeguarding issue, but some of them say that, yeah, we can ask to their neighbor for coming and attend, like attend the children, attend us. So we ask again, if you are asking the neighbor, so if the person is your children, do you allow the neighbor for coming and give the permission for us to take a picture or to make to take the data from your children? So they say that no, I don't allow my neighbor for give the permission. So we ask them again the same question, but five question depend on what the situation, what their answer to the question. So this is from my last experience.
Yeah, it's good. So you basically shared a case study and then asked them what they would do in that situation. So that's really helpful. Melvin or Belle or Dorothy, what kind of questions have you asked recently in interviews to do with safeguarding?
Yeah, see, there are two scenarios. If we are promoting internally, then I normally ask about their understanding about safeguarding policy, or how do they look at the safeguarding policy in TLM. But if the candidate is hiring first time from outside, then I generally ask a question saying like, what makes them, or what do they think that workplace, is a safe.
Okay.
But the other questions we don't directly ask, because we generally do not ask.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if it's an internal one, you ask more about the specifics of the policy, which is great, or the code of conduct, and then externally you probably ask something a bit more general. Okay.
Because special
Go
for
ahead.
people from outside, depending on a certain role, when we ask this kind of a question, the people get very uncomfortable. And so therefore we take this, safeguarding questionnaire once in a different forum, not in the interview, in the panel discussion.
Okay. Julia, I'm just wondering, in your position as a safeguarding kind of organizational kind of advisor lead, thinking about interviews, what would you kind of recommend? What would you think's best?
Yeah, I think it's important to ask something. I like the generic questions, what makes a workplace safe? Maybe ask about in their, scenarios are always good, or can you think of a time when, something didn't feel safe? But I'm definitely not an HR expert, so I'm quite enjoying listening to you actually and learning from all of you.
Yeah, it's good. And I think like what we were saying earlier, if we have shared the policy and the code of conduct in advance, it makes it easier to ask the follow-up questions. Dorothy or Belle, any experience from Ethiopia or PNG, just what's worked for you?
Yeah, in Ethiopia we are with the recent role that we hired, we asked like Julia recommended scenario, if he had happened to work in that safeguarding issue, what was his role? What action did he take? What did he do to amplify the voice of especially the beneficiaries? So we took scenario, it worked very well. So also, yes, he was shocking, especially when he shared us one experience. So yeah, scenario worked very well for us.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. And so it sounds like pretty much everyone in this group is now asking questions about safeguarding as part of the interview process.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Jane,
Dorothy.
In PNG, we also ask questions, but before we ask safeguarding questions, we want to ask them how well they understand the basic knowledge of safeguarding, because it's a sensitive question. Some may know and some may not know. So we want to ask them, do you know what is safeguarding? And some just say basically it's security, to do with security. So we ask them, would you clarify if it's security? And so some of them give us the scenario case, like, okay, it's like when we are going out in the fields, we need to take care of each other because sometimes we face challenges. We are harassed, we are abused, or likewise our beneficiaries too are abused and harassed, and we need to protect them. We need to take them to a safe place where they can be able to get help. So these are the scenarios that we ask them to, explain to us, and they basically explain.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like quite a few places are using that idea of a scenario, and just seeing people's reactions, which is really good. I think it looks like we've only got about 12 seconds left, so we'll probably leave it there for now, but we might talk again later. Okay, so we'll probably go back to the big room again now. Thanks for sharing.
Okay, are we back? We're all back. But every time I come back from a Zoom and go in out of a room, it's like going into a different dimension, in space and traveling through space. But okay, sorry, it was very brief, very quick. Zoom in and zoom out, literally. We've just got some feedback. Jane, I was wondering if you'd like to just give us a feedback over the discussions in your room.
Yeah, I can do really quickly. So yeah, we had a really good kind of different examples. Quite a few places are doing like a scenario or a case study and kind of explaining to people about a certain situation and then asking them what they would do, and that seems to work really well. Then other places have kind of different questions if it's an internal promotion versus if it's somebody from outside the organization, which is really wise. And then in another country, they really start by asking like very basic questions like, what does safeguarding mean to you? How do you keep a workplace safe? So a bit, some it kind of range from the very general to more case studies to kind of more specific, depending on if it's internal or external.
Okay. Thank you very much. So just picking up, I think it sounds a bit similar to some of the discussions in our room. Like we had scenarios that she does because she finds that is most effective. Put a situation, and then what would you do, and how would you keep the beneficiary safe in that instance. And then some of us also, we realized that a lot of people aren't able to, actually they don't really know what safeguarding is about. Sometimes in some contexts it's new for some countries, and so they can't actually answer that first question, what do you know about safeguarding, which could actually make it a bit difficult to go on to a deeper question. Thinking about that, one of the things I found helpful, which is the recommendation to share, and consider this for your next round of interviews, to share the safeguarding policy. This is the shortened one when it comes, or your safeguarding code of conduct, because that's about 2 pages and that's quite detailed as well. When people read that, I think it gives them an idea as they read through it. It's quite obvious to understand what the organization is trying to share with me when I read that document. And it's a preparation document as they come to the interview as well. So when you send that out, you can say, in preparation for interview, please read through this, and they will know. So when they come, they would be, well, the first thing is, if they don't even know what you're talking about, the person didn't read through your document and didn't take the time to prepare for the interview. That tells you one thing. The other thing is, if they've already come with some background information, they would have had time to think about about what they think about it. So that may help. And of course, the scenario is good. Again, if you do have 2 interviews and 2 rounds of interviews, we usually use the second one to actually go even deeper, to have a different type of case scenario where you can go deeper into and see how that person would really practically address it. We've had a question, and perhaps this is for the wider group. So anybody, please feel free to come in. Suma was sharing that in one day, sometimes to save time and budget constraints, they could pack in up to about 12 to 15 interviews in a day. So it's hard to really go very deeply into safeguarding questions. I am just wondering, and so she wants to know how do we deal with that? What are your thoughts on that one? Anyone?
To save time, actually, I asked maximum two questions on safeguarding part, actually. So, and other parts, I mean, in induction program, I try to uh, give as much as detail for the selected candidate so that he or she could understand our policy and ask questions also. So, but in interview, it's really difficult because if we focus on the safeguarding other parts of job-related questions or job-related knowledge, it might be minimized.
I want, just from a safeguarding angle, if I could put Julia in a spot and ask if she has an opinion on this. Julia, would you be able to help us? What do you think?
I mean, I'm not an HR person, but my first thought is 15 interviews in a day sounds like an awful lot for you, but also to go into meaningful detail on any subject, really, including safeguarding. So that's my non-HR expert sort of initial reaction. I just think that it's really important that you do put in some time in every interview to talk about safeguarding and make sure you have enough minutes to at least get some meaningful sense of where the applicant is on safeguarding. That doesn't help your practical problem, but I just think it should be a priority in an interview. I think Damaris wants to say something.
Thanks, Julia.
She's looking ready to jump in.
Yeah, like I was just probably trying to find out more when you end up doing 15 interviews on a day, Suma, would they be face-to-face interviews?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So probably
actually it's not every time happens. Depends on how many positions depend actually for the field staff candidate application is a bigger number, and in that case we sort it out. I mean, 12 to 15. So depends on the position number.
I guess, again, from an HR perspective, if I had a short list of 15 individuals, I would, rather than do a face-to-face interview with the 15, I would do a preliminary stage where I maybe do a small phone interview with the 15, and then I shortlist maybe the best 5 or the best 6 or the best 4. But yeah, I wouldn't always recommend to bring 15 people in, because when you think about all the logistics imply, I mean, you're making your life quite difficult in terms of the workload involved. But you could, if you have 15 people that you think are definitely worth exploring, have a preliminary kind of phone interview where you do something very short. You kind of check certain bases, and then from those 15 you bring them down. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Good idea to phone interview. And recently sorted out from the written test. So separately we plan for written test and also private test. So in written test we allow maximum number. Then we sort it out on the base of their understanding and their result. Then we sort it out for the private test, 5 or 4.
Yeah, I'm just jumping in here again, even though everyone probably has a way to do it. It's really particular to the niche of each role, Suma, and you might have to approach it that way in one particular instance, and in another instance it might be different. So I think you would know what's appropriate for each role. My general recommendation is make your life as easy as possible, and don't push yourself too hard when it's not always necessary. But yeah, each role might require kind of you and the line manager involved just to look at what's appropriate in that instance, in terms of the test, in terms of the number of interviews requires, in terms of how do you merge it all together to come to an objective conclusion.
Okay. I hope with that, and perhaps it's a conversation that we can also continue. I think it sounds like a great one sometimes for Glass Cubes on a little chat as well, or at the next HR Network meeting, we could also pick this up. Thank you very much. We are going to, just let me share my screen again. Okay, move on to a section called background checks. Again, probably another hot topic for us. And this time we're going to move again into breakout groups. But this one, you know, a lot of the above has been line manager. But this one we're saying that is the HR's responsibility to do these checks, conduct these checks. There is a link there, which we'll explore in our groups as well. And some questions for us to think about. So let's move into a time of breakout so that we can just share with each other then, okay? And we will see you back in about 8 minutes to come back again into the wider rooms. See you in a while.
Okay. Hello again. We're back together. Okay, maybe I guess it's helpful if I share my screen. That might just keep us focused. Yeah, so the next 7 or 8 minutes, we're just really going to look at the process for background checks in different countries, because it varies so much from country to country. Some countries it's an easy process that you can have done in 24 hours and at very low cost. Other countries it can take months, and it can actually cost quite a lot. So I guess the first question is, do you know the process that exists in your country, and are you doing it for all staff, or at the minute are you just doing it for some staff, or what's your situation? Maybe Talia, would you be happy to just start us off and kind of talk about what happens in Timor?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for my last experience, when we do the recruitment process, and we the background check for the applicant, we ask them to give the criminal record, and also we check the background check with their reference, like their last working and their reference. But in this case, some of the applicant, they give their family's phone number to us to contact. So we need to check it again with them when we make an interview, because their parents' number, the contact number, some of them give their friends' contact number, because some of them have the last experience, but some of them is the new graduate. So this is sometimes makes me confused if the person is the fresh graduate. So who will we contact? Like they can give their family number, because they can say that I am the fresh graduate, I don't have any experience working in outside. So who will I give the phone number for you to contact for make a background check for me?
Yeah, I think in that situation, if it's someone who's maybe 21 and just out of university or college, normally we would recommend that then you get a reference from like their tutor or their teacher or the head of the school that they attended or the head of the university, just someone that is not their family, because obviously that's not very professional. So we need someone who can really, from a different a different angle, someone who knows them kind of in somewhat of a professional manner. That would be obviously that's much better. Family, it's of no use to us as an organization, and if we do get references from family, we just need to almost send them back and ask for alternatives. Also some people maybe 18, 19 who are coming into their first job, maybe even who haven't got further education, it's also worth just maybe if they've done any volunteering, if they've worked in the community, there's normally someone of standing that can vouch for their character or for their skills. It's just making sure it's someone with the right kind of background that can do that. What about in other places? What about police checks? Because I think police checks is the one that some people find a little bit difficult. Let's see, maybe Belle, in Ethiopia, are you able to do police checks on staff?
We haven't. There's a trend in many international organizations, and it is okay. But we haven't started. We are planning to do it all together, including myself, me, and we are few, so we're doing it together with a new person. But it's important. We haven't yet done it so far, but we will surely.
It's in the plan, and great. Okay. And Melvin, in India, because obviously you've got an awful lot of staff in India. What are you kind of doing about police checks at the minute?
If I am to share my experience from the India context, we do take reference checks, but often what we find is that the references always come very positive and very good. Even if there are issues, people do not disclose. It's very rarely people, I would say 99% of the time, they don't disclose unless you have a good rapport with or you know the other person who is giving the reference, and that too at a personal level, not officially. Coming to criminal or police record is out of question here in our country. But what we do is we ask the candidate and take the declaration. That's it. Okay. That is what we do.
Okay. Thank you. I think there's on this sheet there is a link to the kind of the TLM recommended self-declaration form, which now includes a declaration not just about criminal history but also about your kind of disciplinary record with any previous employer. But if you look at the new safeguarding policy and procedures, it's recommending that as far as possible we do get police checks or criminal checks for all staff. And I know in some countries that's a real challenge, but that's maybe a conversation we just need to keep having. And I know most international NGOs are heading that direction too. So if you do have contacts with other international NGOs in your country, it's worth asking them what are they doing in terms of getting the appropriate checks for staff. Maybe just, I think Julia, you're there, Julia. Thinking about people like DFID or other big donors, do you have any idea about their expectations in this area?
I think their expectations will be that the checks that are available in the country are done, and if they don't exist or they're not very rigorous in terms of showing, convictions to do with actually children or vulnerable adults, then to strengthen other areas of your background checks, so strengthen your reference processes and your self-declarations to sort of to cover where it's lacking in the background in the police checks.
Thanks for sharing that. This link that's here, I think I've got it open. It's worth sorry, wrong page. I don't know if you can still let me share now, because I don't know, sometimes I wonder if I'm sharing the right thing. Hopefully now you can see the kind of website that's about criminal record checks. I think you can see that, So it might be worth, if you've got questions about the process in your country, it might be worth just having a look at this website and looking at your country and kind of what it says there. Not to say that this information is 100% correct by any means, but if you have some questions about it, it's worth looking here, and then you can scroll down to your country. I mean, for example, we could maybe look at Ethiopia. Need to go down the E. So this is meant to give examples of how to get a police check or a background check in every single country in the world. There's probably a quicker way to do this. Here we go. Yeah. So again, you need to check if this information is right, but you know, it'll give an idea of maybe how you have to go to, sorry, let's move that, the Office of the Federal Commission. You need to give your fingerprints, you need to give a passport, you need to give photographs. There's a cost, blah, 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 blah. There's a contact information. So if you have comment or questions about how to do it in your country, it's worth looking at this website just to see what's there. But yeah.
I am muted. Okay. I think we are back. Where's Jane? Oh, there's Jane.
We're back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry again for the very short briefing. Is there, Jane, would we do a quick 1-minute summary of the chat?
Sure. We had a really interesting conversation around things like whenever you get references from family members, what to do with that, or in some situations, if someone's very young and hasn't had a previous job, what do you do about that? And then in some countries, just it's not possible to potentially get kind of police or criminal checks for staff. So again, that's a concern. And I guess what we were saying is, excuse me, it's really about taking every step that you can to find out as much about the person. So if you can get those things, it's great. If you can't, then do talk to either someone that works in safeguarding or one of us to think about other ways that you can find out more about the background of the applicant. We had a quick look at the website, but we didn't have enough time to look at it in detail.
Yeah, that would be the same for us, and it's just a recommendation. I think the countries in my group have already done the background checks. They do know how to go about it, but the situation is some places it takes extremely long. You don't get any answers to come back. Some places are very easy to get a police check. It's almost, they'll tell you, you just pay a fee and you'll get the police check done. But we don't know how credible it is. So what we kind of discuss and establish is that if we put lots of things in place, there is also the self-declaration form on your criminal background and also your disciplinary background form that we have as part of the policies that we are going to ask people themselves to sign. So it's not the police check, it's different from that, it's individual signing. We try our best to get the police check to show that we do take this seriously. And we get the references if we can. We try and call and follow up and get that. And if we do try and put this in place, then we're doing what due diligence we can to show and as much mitigation as we can. Just thinking if is there any input here that we want to add before we move on. Any further thoughts? Okay, so we're going to move on now to just reference checks as well. Before we move on to the reference checks, there was a question. Let me stop and ask this one. It's about police checks for staff who are already working with TLM, but perhaps might be in medium and high risk roles. Should we, or have we been doing police checks for our staff? Any comments? I'd love to hear from you. Any thoughts? No. Can I ask if Damaris could share a little bit on this, on your thoughts on retrospective police checks for staff who are already working with TLM? Damaris?
Yes, what we have done is we have asked existing staff to fill the self-declaration form. So all of them that were there for 20 years, 15 years, 100 years, of course not, they still had to fill the self-declaration form. We have not gone as far as to start asking police checks for them. So it's something that probably we will need to assess maybe for very high-risk roles, I would say, but people that have been with us, the minimum standard would be that everyone have the self-declaration form. That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Okay. So we do recommend that as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you do have further questions, please feel free to ask us as well. And we're going to move on to reference checks. Okay, so when we go about doing reference checks, there is also a template that we put online, but we're recommending at least a minimum of 2 and if better 3 references to be obtained, and to use the same template for all the references so that they fill in the same information and it's easy to compare. To be fair, we should supply the job description and the person specification together in the reference request. And there should be a safeguarding question, or the referee can also be asked if they're aware of anything about this person's working background that might give rise to some concern. For roles working with children or vulnerable adults, also to ask about how this applicant or this person that we have shortlisted, what are their attitudes towards safeguarding or protecting those. And then to follow up as well with a telephone reference. I'm going to take us over to the reference checks here. If you can see it, please, or if you can't see it, let me know. But it's a standard one which is on glass cubes. And I think some of us may have also used this before. But it's, again, a sampling of questions that we recommend would be helpful for you to use. Please do use it to what is relevant to your country. But here highlighted in the 3 are some recommendations on safeguarding questions that you could potentially ask and include in your reference checks. Yeah. Thank you, Jane. And she's put the form there as well online. So that's fantastic. Just going to pause here again and ask if there are any questions for this.
Yeah. May I go ahead? Sorry, I don't have a.
No worries, no worries.
Sorry, yeah. I agree with Malvin earlier. He shared this experience. It is very unlikely for the references to write the weakness of the applicant, and it is sad. So, in common with my previous organization, also what we do is we try to find in our networks, especially at high level roles. So we find individuals in our networks to see what about the person. We try to find out things about the person. Otherwise, as he said, it's 90-something% of reference comes as a perfect candidate. Now he's this and he's this, and it's always exaggerated. So we have to find ways. So that's what we do, if it can help.
That's interesting to hear. Is there anyone else that also faces the same issues? But it's interesting. Yeah, Damaris.
Yeah, I think it's something that probably many countries we face, even not only because the person that has been given as a reference contact will always be someone that will be giving a positive feedback, because otherwise the candidate would have not given that contact 9 out of 10. But also because of the law of certain countries does not allow for negative references to be provided. Again, for us in the UK, the law is very specific. You can be objective, but you cannot provide negative references. That's why the questions on the reference form, they need to be really smart. They need to be intelligent questions so that we are asking for objective information. And the screen that Cindy was showing a moment ago, it was not even asking for an opinion. It was just directly asking, has the person got any disciplinary issue? So is there any file of disciplinary issues occurring in the lifetime of this person in your organization? Has the person got any safeguarding issues that have come up again in the course of their employment with you? So the questions need to be smart. And we have some examples here, but in some of your countries, like for myself in the UK, we might have to adapt them, but they need to be objective so that we don't go into opinion as much as, has there been anything of this nature? Because if it has been, we need to know so that we are aware and we can explore it. So it's just that sort of analysis. There's some examples there. They are not the only ones in your particular context and countries. There might be different things that can work better. And that's where your own expertise and your own context knowledge applies. And there might not be a one-size-fits-all. But again, remember, smart questions, objective questions that cannot merely lead to a vague response, but that they can tell us significantly whether there is a reason of concern or not.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, I will stop sharing because Jane is going to take over from me and to continue in the last bit for us. Jane, are you okay to go on?
Yes, I can do that.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, so I know we're running a bit short of time, so maybe we'll just try to end in about 5 or 10 minutes. But for those of you who've seen the new safeguarding policy procedures document, you will have seen that in that document there is this new kind of updated self-declaration form, which is really asking people to disclose their any kind of criminal history or allegations, etc. So whenever the new policy comes out in about a month or 6 weeks time, please do take time to look at that form and then to share it with the staff that you need to get to complete it, because that will be really important. And yeah, so just keep an eye out for that. We'll also upload a Word version of that form on the hub, in the HR hub, so that people can start using it in a few weeks' time. But yeah, before we kind of end today, there's just maybe 1 or 2 more things we'd love to just chat about. The first one is about making a decision and making an offer of employment. I think, as we all know, sometimes you can have concerns about a candidate that you've interviewed and you're maybe not 100% sure that you want to offer them the job, but you may be under pressure to find someone within a certain time frame. And I think we just wanted to reiterate that if there are legitimate concerns about an applicant, it's better not to appoint them than to know that there are risks about them, but to put them in the position. So if you have legitimate concerns, better to re-advertise the position and try and find someone else and maybe take risks. And then we're just reminding everyone that whenever you do make the offer of the job, it should be a conditional offer. So it should be an offer that's based on receiving satisfactory references and satisfactory background checks. And we have made a template. I think hopefully you can see the template. Cindy, can you just nod if you can see it? Yeah, okay. So yeah, so we kind of drafted this template letter that we would encourage maybe people to use and to contextualize for their own country. But whenever you offer someone a job, we thought it's good just to outline that it is conditional. Obviously confirm all the details like salary, allowances, working hours, if there's how long the probation period is, start date, all of the normal things that you would like to make sure the person is completely understanding. But then at the bottom, there's kind of this additional section, which I've kind of put in purple, which is just saying this offer is conditional upon the following things, and there's quite a list of things there. So it includes having the references, having seen the person's identity documents, having seen their qualifications, etc., etc. So yeah, we've just put in extra checks, whereas maybe in the past we wouldn't have had all of those things in place. We're now recommending those are all in place before anyone is appointed. Any questions about using this kind of letter whenever you give someone the job offer? I again, this will be available on the HR Hub for people to have a look at and to maybe adapt for their own countries and hopefully to start using. But if you've got any concerns about it or any suggestions, please do let us know, and then we can look at tweaking the wording to make it, you know, more globally appropriate. Okay. So I think the last thing then, just to really have a chat about today, is this last section about HR files. So for those of us who work in HR, you're very familiar with the kind of HR filing system. And for some people, I know that's like hundreds and hundreds of files. So it's an awful lot of information that you're managing, and can take up a lot of time. But I guess we just wanted to, you know, reiterate the importance of maintaining those files appropriately and confidentially. So again, whenever things are held in these files, such as criminal records or personal declaration forms, we really need to make sure that as few people as possible, only those who need to have access to those documents, are able to do so. I just wondered, maybe Shan, I know that you do quite a lot with the HR files in the international office. Would you be able to share anything from your experience about how you make sure that certain information is kept confidential?
Yeah, I mean, we've got all our HR personnel files locked away in a cabinet, and it's only accessible to Damaris and myself. So yeah, we do have paper copies as well as soft copies, and we've just done a process of going through all, you know, the current staff files, just checking that all the documents that we need are there, including code of conducts, and, you know, yeah, that everything's there. So, and then I think Damaris has we have another filing cabinet where Damaris has some confidential files that only she will access. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess that's also for people, there's quite a few people in the Leprosy Mission who are both designated safeguarding leads and who are HR managers or HR personnel, and I guess it's a good reminder that we need to keep those files separately. So people's safeguarding information shouldn't necessarily all be in their EHR file and vice versa, because there should be a split between those two kind of systems. And Damaris, would you be able just to comment on that and kind of any recommendations you have?
Yeah, no, just probably a word of encouragement for everyone that has both hats, HR hat and a safeguarding hat. And I know it's many of us that have been appointed designated safeguarding leads. And I think you've given a lot in terms of what is required, but what I would like just to add is, yeah, a word of encouragement. You have a great responsibility, and everyone has been doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much. And maybe in the future, we might have a session where we get the people with a double hat together, just to kind of talk about the challenges, because I think there is a lot that we could say that maybe we don't necessarily have time to get today, but we might address that in the future.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I guess today we're just really reminding you, make sure you keep that confidential and to keep all the appropriate information in there. But yeah, I think we're pretty much out of time. There's a few more things that we'd like to talk to you, but we do have another date lined up in November. So it's going to be a couple of months away, but in that session we'll talk a lot more about onboarding and offboarding and performance management and learning and development. So we'll probably need another couple of hours together. But we've really appreciated your kind of level of interaction and discussion today, and really also I appreciate the suggestions you've made on several things that we can now go away and improve as well. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you want to just close us up?
Yeah, no, my apologies, because I said that we would go through 2, which is also onboarding. It's actually not very long, but I think it would just stretch us at least to another perhaps half hour. So we'll put that into the next session. But again, you have links to the whole HR section, and you can access any of these links anytime. So please do feel free to look through them. If it doesn't matter if your questions are ahead of time. Please do ask Jane and myself if you need any help. And one thing that I didn't mention, which I should have mentioned at the beginning, is that you might be thinking, okay, you know, a lot of this is the line manager's responsibility, so why not call the line managers and you can tell them the same message at the same time? But we really want to entrust this with all of us in HR, that it's not just our responsibility, but it is also your professional knowledge that you bring to the organization, and we know that you'll be able to do this yourselves really, really well with your line managers, sharing with them the things that you've learned. Some of us are DSLs as well, to be able to bring that forward, express that with your line managers. But do know that we are here if you need more information, if you do need more help, if you do need brainstorming on how the best way to do it as well. And we would be happy to help you with that. So on that note, we want to thank you. We will send you the date for the next one. And I just wish you a really, really great day ahead.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Great
Take
to
care.
see you, everyone.
Yes, indeed.